All right, so I always find a couple of little ways of redoing an assignment when I do these videos. So this is my third attempt, I think, at this one, and I keep changing things along the way. So the blood pressure investigation. This one's a pretty cool little simulation. It's found at this link here. I'll open it up shortly, where you investigate what are the risk factors for high blood pressure or hypertension, or also known as hypertension. So you should be able to do a quick little Google search on that one. Even a copy and paste, I did it, comes up real fast. And then you're going to create a hypothesis. So in this blood pressure investigation, you are going to look at males and you're going to look at females and you're going to look at different age ranges. So your hypothesis needs to be something along the lines of a comparison of males versus females. So I believe that males are at greater risk for hypertension, or I believe that females are at greater risk for hypertension, or I believe based on what you know up here, you might say something like, I believe overweight males are at a higher rate for hypertension, or females with a high salt diet are at a higher rate for hypertension. So your hypothesis gives you a lot of room to come up with something that you're going to look at through the data. And I'm open to a bunch of different ideas here, and you can use some of the ones that I suggested. That's fine as well. So instructions. Let's open up. Well, yeah. So let's open up what the lab actually looks like. Choking on my words here. So we're going to open our link. And while that opens, yeah, you might have to enable the flash depending on your Chrome browser. I'm going to use the tab resize just because for this one, I feel like I want to work between the two documents, and I find this easier than flipping back and forth between different windows. So it'll take a second before it loads back up again. All right, so what have we got? We've got an investigation where we're going to look at factors that affect the likelihood, so your rate of hypertension. You look at age and gender as well. So again, that's what we kind of talked about with our hypothesis here. And you can ignore the procedure that's here, even though we do somewhat follow it. It's outlined over here a little bit differently. So one thing to note, generally, you would have had to have done all of these results on your own, but just in terms of our timelines of 20 days, I did some results for you, but you are going to do the analysis part of these results, and you're going to do a second part that's slightly different, and you're going to tell me some of those results, and those will actually be individualized for every student. So I like that part. So what we've got over in this virtual lab, and it gives you all kinds of funky little sound effects when we do it. So to start, we know this first table is looking at males, and they're in the age range of 11 to 17, all the way up to 47 to 54. Okay, so first, you would have had to have done all this yourself. You would have selected your males within the age range, and then you would have measured their blood pressure. Perfect. So you'll see these blood pressures pop up. So 122 over 79, 113 over 74. They will be slightly, when you do this, they change with each individual that does it. This is what came up when I did it, and this is what we will use for our calculations. So what you'll see is each person pops up and it gives you a medical record number. So that's all that I put there. Originally, my person here was number 8. He had a blood pressure of 118 over 77. So I recorded those values. And if we look over on his medical record, we also see some other interesting things. So we'll see things like weight up here. We'll see family history of hypertension, yes or no. Do you have a high salt diet? Yes or no. Do you have a lack of exercise? Yes or no. And what's your alcohol consumption like? So that being said, all of a sudden, I've just learned about a whole bunch of different risk factors. So things like family history of hypertension, high salt diet, lack of exercise, alcohol consumption, being overweight. So they're saying for this age and this height, this person should be around 132, should be around 135 optimal, and is around 132. So that's pretty good weight. Okay, so we find out all that information for each person. We can then change the age range. So that's what I did. And then I measured the blood pressure for the 18 to 24 group. You could see the results that I individually got there, which will be different from yours, but that's okay. I'll show you how we're going to modify that. And then we get into sort of the higher age ranges. So let's do this. For a male 25 to 34. And all of a sudden we get all of our green numbers, but we see these two red numbers. So if we look closer, you'll see similar results in mine. And we've got a male number 79. So that's actually him right here. And he's got a blood pressure of, where was it? Yeah, 145/92. But what's going on with this male on his medical record? We can see he has a family history of hypertension. So there's a red flag for me. And his optimal weight is actually 170, but he's showing up around 226. So clearly he's not at his optimal weight. So those might be two risk factors that I identify for that individual. Let's have a look at our next individual. So we've got medical record of number 72. He didn't come up in my first go through, but that's fine. Let's look at him. So again, optimal weight is 150. This 5'9" male has a weight of 201. So clearly he's not at his optimal weight. He also has other issues. So he has a family history of hypertension. He has a high salt diet. He has a lack of exercise. So we can see that these males would be equivalent to other males that are highlighted in my chart, but might be slightly different in the results that you get because they're randomized within the within this search. So let's do it again. We're going up to a higher age group. Now all of a sudden we've got 1, 2, 3. So let's just quickly look at our highest age group. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're starting to notice a trend as we go into the higher age groups. Okay, so looking back over specifically at the assignment, number 3 says calculate the average systolic and diastolic blood pressures for each age group. You are doing this based on my results, not yours. So there's a calculator button. You can either use your own calculator or right under here. Yeah, there's a little calculator there. So if we go back up, you need to do it for the systolic and the diastolic for every age group. So let's go back up to our age group of 11 to 17. We are going to add up all of these and then divide by 10 people that we have. So it'd be 118 plus 119 plus 113, Make sure you hit the equals because this is a Cruddy calculator. And if you're using your phone, make sure you hit the equals before you divide by 10. Once you get that average, it should be a number that makes sense. So you can kind of check your work as you go too. If you've got systolic pressures in the range of 109 to 122, you know you're not going to have an average of 157 or 13. So if your number doesn't make sense, you probably haven't hit equals on your calculator, or you've probably done something small wrong. So you should be able to self-check that. So you're adding all these up, you are dividing by 10, and you are recording the average systolic pressure for my results in this table. Then you're going to do the same thing for the same age group for the diastolic pressure. So you're going to add up all of these. You're going to hit equals. You're going to divide by 10. You're going to see if your number makes sense. What have we got? We've got 69, low value, and a high value of 80. So we know our average has to be somewhere in between there. If your number is not in between there, you've just made a silly math error. So record all of your pressures. You're going to repeat this across for all the different age ranges. Make sure that you don't use the patient numbers. That might be a little mistake that people make. So make sure that you're doing the right thing. Then you're going to look at your females. So same thing with your females. These are the results that I got. Your results might be different. That's fine. But when you do this, you're going to use my results. So you're going to go up to your females from age range of 11 to 17. You're going to add those numbers together. You are going to divide by 10, and you're going to record them in the systolic pressure. You're going to do the same thing for every age group following through. Okay? Next part. And don't be afraid to pause my rambling when you need to work on one part. It's okay to pause the video and go back to it. So the next part, use the blood pressure management chart to determine to record how many people have normal, pre, hypertension. So if we look at this chart, actually, let me make this bigger now. If we look at these two pieces of information, we know that normal blood pressure would be a systolic pressure under 120 and a diastolic pressure under 180. Well, we've been talking about these terms. What do they actually mean? So I just kind of posted what they mean over here. So systolic is when the heart contracts and pumps blood from the chambers into the arteries. So you've got that massive push in your heart as it's kind of blowing the blood outwards into the body. Makes sense that that pressure is going to be higher, right? And then as the heart relaxes and the blood flows back into the heart, that's where you get your diastolic pressure. So you're getting the systolic when it's pumping out to the body. Makes sense, that would be higher. The diastolic when the blood is filling your chambers. Okay, so let's look here. We've got this chart. We know from reading the chart with hypertension, anything pink is considered to be hypertension. So if you're up over 90 and if you're up over 130, you are going to be considered to have hypertension. Pre-hypertension, you would have a systolic somewhere in between 120 to 130 and somewhere between 80 and 90. So those would be your orange people. Then for normal blood pressure, you would have 0 to 120 and 0 to 80. So what you guys are going to do up in this chart here is you can look at, maybe we'll open this twice. So I'm just going to copy that, paste it over. And I'm going to do tab resize again, just so I can put these things side by side. And we'll wait for it to load up. Okay, so let's scroll down. Sorry, just takes a minute. The internet here. Okay, so here's what we're looking at. And Let's see if I can get this chart to pull over. Sorry, my computer's running awfully slow. Okay. Yeah. So here we go. So then what you are going to do is have a look here at the numbers. So if a person is 129 over 76, so we know they're good in the diastolic. 129, they're a little high, so we could place them as pre-hypertension. So you can do this, and then let's go back over here. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to make you guys do this. That's going to be too tedious. So scratch that part. But you do need to look at these numbers to decide, oh no, I think you do need to do this. Just a sec. Let me double check here. Yeah, you are going to do this. So unfortunately, it's going to take you a little bit, but at least you didn't have to record all this data. So if you're 122 over 73, you're good on one side, you're not so good on the other. So let's call it pre-hypertension, just because it falls high here. 129 over 80 would be definitely in, well, you're sort of on the same range. So this one would be pre-hypertension as well. 129 over 77. So 129, so you're high here, low here. So you're going to record that as pre-hypertension as well. 130 over 80 would be pre-hypertension as well. 125 over 75. So you're going to go through each of them and decide what color you need to fill it. And you might end up adding some pink numbers as you go, because I've only highlighted the red people from the experiment. So let's just wait and see if we can get this to go. You know what? It's going too slow. I'm going to stop the video there, and I will do a part 2.